A confrontation takes place with someone named Albus, who's described as a heartless machine. Despite attempts to reach through to him, he remains unmoved. Albus finds the situation fascinating and questions if the others truly wish to erase them. Characters struggle with breaking something tough. Matthew is criticized for interfering when they should have left it alone. The conversation hints at tension between the characters as they deal with the aftermath of their actions. A discussion follows about defeating a creature called a scrab. One character used Ouroboros Power during the fight, which is tracked by an entity called Mobius. Despite warnings to control this power, the character dismisses concerns, stating it was only a little whiff and that they ultimately won. The characters reflect on another day without signals and consider quitting their search for survivors from the city. Despite not meeting any citizens yet, one character refuses to give up, believing tomorrow will bring better luck. As night approaches, they decide to make camp. A dramatic moment occurs as someone named Brendan tells Matthew to take care of Nile, suggesting that the future is in Matthew's hands before something happens to Brendan. Morning arrives with Matthew having slept in. He mentions camping with his grandfather as a child. They detect a signal from a city iris and discover someone who appears to have been killed by monsters rather than Mobius. They express regret at not being able to help. A battle scene unfolds with forces holding positions. The characters observe what appears to be a conflict between colonies, seeing two young fighters continuing their battle even after mutual destruction of their forces. Despite warnings to stay out of it, Matthew decides to intervene. Matthew attempts to stop the fighting between the two young combatants. When words fail, he resorts to physical intervention. He introduces himself and A as allies from the city, suggesting their real enemies are elsewhere. Soon after, these real enemies appear, revealed to be Mobius. The Mobius representatives are upset about the interruption to their entertainment. Matthew confronts them, claiming custody of the two children. He's identified as a Mobius hunter with an Ouroboros iris. A battle ensues against the Mobius entities, who Matthew and A manage to defeat. Matthew tries to convince the two young fighters, named Nicole and Glimmer, that they no longer need to fight, explaining their flame clocks and iris clocks are gone. One fighter is devastated, having wanted to sacrifice their life for fallen comrades. Matthew suggests they reconsider who forced them to fight in the first place. A flashback shows Matthew and others training with Ouroboros powers under their grandfather's guidance. They discuss the history of these powers, revealing they were instrumental in founding the city when those with Ouroboros abilities confronted Mobius long ago. Their parents died 15 years prior in a battle against Mobius. The scene shifts to the present, where it's revealed that Glimmer, one of the young soldiers, has departed sometime around dawn. Matthew is upset that he wasn't informed earlier, as he would have tried to stop her from leaving. A group discusses a personal matter involving a woman who has fled. They debate about persuasion failing and decide to pursue her before she reaches a colony, which could put her in danger. They determine to head northwest into Agnian territory, where the woman likely went to rejoin her troops. The group encounters a monster while searching. Matthew eagerly engages in combat with another member, executing a synergy move. After defeating it, they discuss the risk of being hunted after taking out two Mobius the previous day. One member reminds them that not all Mobius are easily defeated. One member of the group, identified as unable to summon a blade, expresses amazement at the Ouroboros Power displayed during combat. Matthew explains that anyone touched by the light inherits this power, which was created specifically to destroy Mobius cores. He mentions this power originated about 70 years ago and has been passed down through generations. Nicole, initially hesitant, requests time to make adjustments to their backpack arms to improve mobility in battle. The group reassures Nicole that they are neither hostage nor prisoner and encourages openness. They stop at a rest spot to allow for the modifications. The group discusses Nicole's adaptability despite seeming meek. They recognize the need to find the woman who fled before she gets into trouble. Meanwhile, the woman encounters wolves, but is soon confronted by people with unusual gear who capture her upon discovering she's an Agnian soldier. The captors notice the woman has no flame clock, identifying her as one of the clockless. A figure referred to as Teacher arrives to assess the situation. Elsewhere, the original group follows signs of battle, finding evidence that the woman was taken but not killed. During a break, Matthew expresses guilt about freeing someone from the cycle of fighting. Nicole acknowledges they share the same situation, unable to return to their colony without fighting again, which prompts Matthew to declare them friends. Teacher orders the woman released, explaining she's a friend since she's freed from the flame clock. The woman identifies herself as Glimmer from Colony Gamma. She describes how two people, one with silver hair and a red sword, and another in black clothes using knuckles, destroyed their clock and defeated Mobius. The captors recognize the description matches Matthew, expressing surprise he's still alive. They identify themselves as the Liberators who protect survivors from the city. While distracted by communication signals, Glimmer escapes by knocking out her guards. The original group detects a Pharaonis, large entity moving eastward without its usual crew of soldiers. They pursue it. Meanwhile, the Liberators discover Glimmer's escape and worry she'll head for a colony where she might be killed. Teacher laments not giving her full information sooner. A battle begins with multiple participants preparing for combat. Glimmer, from Colony Gamma, introduces herself as a former member of the field support platoon who lost her colony fighting Colony 5. While reconnoitering solo, she discovered a camp beyond their current location. Glimmer encounters hostility from a Lord Consul who declares that soldiers without flame clocks have outlived their purpose. Despite Glimmer providing enemy locations, the Consul states her fate is erasure. Someone intervenes to protect Glimmer, revealing the true nature of the Consuls. The intervening party mentions a broken compact with Zed that established a ceasefire and non-interference agreement. The Consul responds that circumstances changed after two comrades were killed, making the situation personal. A battle ensues with multiple participants joining the fray. Matthew introduces himself along with his companions Aid and Nicole. They had previously encountered Glimmer. The conversation reveals Ouroboros Power, which apparently was responsible for killing someone named Mobius. Matthew expresses intense hatred toward their opponent. A new threat appears, another Pharaonis. The enemy combines two Pharaonises to double their power. The group must concentrate on protecting Glimmer. Someone named Rex offers assistance, claiming he will handle the situation. A reflective conversation about events from 15 years ago occurs. They discuss the ongoing soldier conflicts and debate whether peaceful coexistence is possible or if fighting must continue. One character takes an all-or-nothing stance regarding protecting children important to them. Rex draws away the threat while others prepare to fight. The group coordinates their attack strategy, with Shulk taking the right side, another taking the left, and someone targeting Mobius. They execute their plan in synchronization despite some confusion. After defeating their opponent, the group discusses unusual aspects of the double flame clock containing no soldiers. Someone mentions rumors about experimental flame clocks created by one of the Mobius. Linka agrees to dispatch a platoon to investigate further. The group identifies a city refugee with Ouroboros Power and questions a released soldier. Tension arises when they discover Glimmer had revealed their position to enemies. She defensively claims she never asked for this situation and fought hard to return to her comrades. The group clarifies 2 points. The Consul was their enemy, and Glimmer should accept her friends are gone. They decide to team up after reuniting with Dylan. Someone offers to set up tents for debriefing, before traveling to their base at first light. The group explains they belong to the Liberators, a resistance faction founded to fight against Mobius and free the world. Their current objective involves rescuing people from the city and soldiers freed from the clots. Their numbers have grown as rescued people join their cause. After reaching the temporary camp, leaders discuss concerns about Glimmer, noting she resembles someone from their past. They mention Shulk is connected in a similar way, suggesting they are bound by fate. The discussion implies complicated histories affecting current relationships. A conversation about weaponry takes place, with one character admiring another's equipment. They discuss how tools are neither good nor bad, but depend on how they're used. A character named Riku is mentioned as having created a mechanical arm for someone with a war wound. Glimmer promises not to run away again, acknowledging there's nowhere left to go. She reflects on being bullied for her inability to summon a blade, making her feel useless. Now that her bullies are dead, she expresses a desire to make something of herself in this new situation. Nicole acknowledges being glad about not having to kill someone in the past, which led to them becoming friends. Despite the lighthearted banter, there's underlying tension among some members as they prepare for a journey to their base. The weather is debated, with one member predicting rain, despite the seemingly pleasant morning. The group continues their morning interactions. Someone mentions feeling well-rested thanks to the others, expressing excitement about seeing their base. When asked about the location, they're told they need to climb a cliff and follow a road to reach it. There are refugees from the city at the base, and the newcomers are encouraged to let them know they're all right upon arrival. An emotional farewell takes place between friends. Noelle is complimented on her scent, and a promise is made to visit and hear her play music again. The departing group is heading to establish what they call a second city, with ambitions to make it greater than imaginable, which is met with a playful challenge. The group arrives at the Liberators' base of operations, Colony 9. It's clarified this is the original Colony 9, not the one from Curvis or like Curvesian or Agnian colonies. Matthew heads to the command center to prepare quarters, while the others plan to explore. The place serves as a safe haven for city survivors. The group begins a tour of the colony, starting with the plaza described as the heart of Colony 9. The bustling atmosphere reminds someone of the city. They're given time to explore the plaza at their own pace before continuing to the command center, which functions as the strategic hub for the Liberators. The group observes former Kavesi and Agnian soldiers working in fields. They discover what appear to be abandoned husks of soldiers who died not from combat but possibly starvation, despite nearby water sources. It's noted these soldiers knew only fighting and weren't taught survival skills like farming, which the Liberators are now teaching them. The group is shown to their tents and invited to use all facilities. Instead of turning in early, they decide to explore further. A Nopon mechanic named Riku has requested to meet with them. He's established a workshop in an abandoned house near the colony entrance, which particularly interests Nicole, who wants to see his setup. The group separates to pursue different activities. One goes to speak with Dylan about the city folk, another visits the command center to see Shulk, and the third accompanies someone to the market. Later, Matthew learns that while his friend Nile hasn't been seen, there's a chance she escaped with Naomi's group heading toward Faunus. A conversation about independence and relationships reveals different paths walked. A search party returns without finding survivors, but brings back objects, including one that Matthew recognizes as belonging to his sister Nihil. This discovery agitates Matthew, who insists on heading to Ragwell Lake immediately to find her. Matthew reveals Nile is his little sister, whom he's been searching for. When told the emergency transmission came from Ragwell Lake, he prepares to leave alone, despite recommendations to take an escort. The others explain they were planning to investigate as well, since a whole search party being taken out is serious. Matthew apologizes for his outburst, acknowledging they don't have the luxury of time. The group discusses using an ether slide, a transportation method that uses ether flow for propulsion. This technology was developed by Teacher and Riku together and would help them get close to Ragwell Lake. The process requires special materials, including black shards, which are rare ether crystal structures transformed by the black fog. These components are needed to build ether amplifiers that project the wires along which they can slide. A search party investigates an area with numerous footprints but finds no traces of Ouroboros Power. They discover something unusual, tracks leading to the location but none leading away, suggesting the refugees disappeared without a trace. The party is suddenly ambushed by attackers who plan to strip their corpses for supplies. Tension rises within a group about bringing other people along. Nile is upset about the death of Kyra and questions their actions. A heated argument ensues between Matthew and Nile about whether it's possible to create a world where nobody has to die. Nile expresses frustration, admitting they're barely holding on, while Matthew struggles with idealism against harsh reality. The group discusses the uncertainty around a missing person's fate, noting how bodies in this world vanish without a trace, rather than turning into husks like soldiers do. Despite the lack of evidence, they try to remain hopeful. Someone invites them to join others for food at a gathering. Matthew recounts what happened on the day the city fell. He was severely injured and later nursed back to health by someone named A, who found him while traveling. Matthew harbors intense hatred for someone referred to as the Mobius bastard, vowing revenge. A conversation reveals details about entities called Logos, male, Pneuma, female, and Ontos between them, forming the Trinity processor. It's explained that Origin is based on Ontos's core architecture. Alpha, who is once Ontos, separated from this conscience and decided that only the people of the city deserved preservation, planning to erase the old world. A sudden wind interrupts their conversation as someone comes to fetch Matthew. Strange creatures attack, resembling but different from Mobius scraps. After defeating them, Matthew explains to Orin they were just a new breed of monster, downplaying the use of Ouroboros Power and noting it's been 15 years since they fought Mobius. Nihil appears distracted and spaced out. Matthew receives a call for help dealing with wolf problems and leaves to assist. Once alone, Nihil repeats the phrase about heading toward a new world. A character notes that Alpha has controlled Origin for over a decade and might finally show himself. A dramatic reunion occurs when Matthew sees Neil, whom he thought was dead. However, others warn Matthew that this isn't truly Neil. Alpha is inside her, using her as a vessel. They explain that Alpha appeared with the goal of destroying the world, and despite their collective efforts to fight him, they only managed to delay his plans. A tense confrontation unfolds as characters face a betrayal. Someone accuses Matthew of siding with opponents, though Matthew denies this. The betrayer announces they will proceed alone, bidding goodbye to their brother. This triggers intense emotions in someone identified as the Avatar, whose feelings amplify Alpha's power significantly. N appears, declaring that raw emotion strengthens Alpha, but can be disrupted with stronger emotions. He claims he will thwart Alpha again with his blade. Someone called Neil appears disconnected from doubts and misgivings. An intense confrontation occurs, with someone addressing Matthew and claiming it's over, though others protest. Matthew confronts someone he accuses of killing his grandfather and now targeting Neil. Another person intervenes, telling Matthew not to attack as the person is not his enemy, but rather his flesh and blood. This revelation shocks Matthew, who finds it impossible to believe, while Neil acknowledges the strength of Matthew's emotions. The antagonist taunts that they've only bought themselves time. A creature called Orochi appears, attributed to Alpha's doing, indicating time is running short. Someone mentions that Zed, described as the Mobius leader, promised them eternity in return for protecting the world. This revelation appears significant, prompting anger. A character vows to cut down Alpha before anyone can intervene. Matthew is shocked at this determination, pointing out that she is also their flesh and blood. The scene transitions to Matthew demanding to be included in information sharing, tired of being kept in the dark. The history of their world is revealed. Originally one prosperous realm, until one person's actions split it into two worlds, Bionis and Ulrest, which evolved independently. Despite conflicts over resources, the worlds eventually found harmony. However, the separated worlds longed to reunite. Though doing so would cause them to dissolve into light, they built Origin, a repository of all data, memories, and souls that would allow them to revive everything even if the worlds were annihilated. At its core is the Trinity processor called Ontos, also known as Alpha. Alpha deemed their existence obsolete and wanted to erase them. Despite fighting back, they only delayed the inevitable. Alpha is gathering power again, preparing to depart in Origin's heart, called the Ark, taking city people to a new world. Matthew questions why a specific person was chosen, with suggestions it's due to Agnian ancestry and core crystal dominance. Others note that emotions are a crucial element that Alpha feeds on. Someone criticizes the world for its greed and devaluing of life. Matthew defends his sister Nile as kind, noting she cared for city children. It's explained that people change when they lose kindness, and Alpha uses those negative emotions as fodder. Matthew resolves to find Alpha for Nile's sake, not to save the world. Despite learning N is family, Matthew rejects this connection because N killed his grandfather. Someone advises Matthew to listen to N's side of the story before making final judgment. The group then discusses their next action, breaking into Origin to defeat Alpha and rescue Nile. Their destination is Prison Island at the northernmost tip of Saint Omnia region. The entrance is at a high elevation, making ground access impossible. With air transport unavailable, they plan to modify Aether Slide apparatus for vertical ascent, essentially creating an Aether lift to reach the island. Nicole and Glimmer announce they want to join the fight against Alpha. They acknowledge they don't have much time left and want to use it beneficially. Despite their willingness, they're told they lack sufficient Ouroboros power to pose a meaningful threat to Alpha. Nicole suggests they could potentially amplify their Ouroboros power using the Ouroboros stone, which has untapped capabilities. Matthew supports giving them a chance, stating they feel like part of the group now. The debate remains unresolved, with Nicole mentioning Riku has an idea for drawing out more power. The group decides to speak with Riku about powering up the Ouroboros stone. Despite Riku's initial reluctance due to being busy, he becomes interested when learning their purpose. He explains that the stone was created by the queens of Kevis and Agnes long ago, but remained imperfect, preventing those who summoned Ouroboros power from defeating Mobius. Riku reveals he can improve the stone's mechanism based on historical records, but requires a trigger. He provides microterminals that connect Ouroboros power users to the stone. When wearing these terminals during battles, the user's biological data is transmitted to the stone, allowing both to grow stronger. However, a significant trigger is needed for meaningful progress. The group theorizes that fighting against powerful opponents could act as the necessary catalyst, citing a previous spike in Matthew's power during a battle with N. Shulk and Rex volunteer to be the challenging opponents, proposing a battle at Gotrok Oracle Ruins to test Nicole and Glimmer's abilities. At the ruins, the group encounters and defeats some enemies as a warm-up before the main battle. Despite some self-doubt, Nicole and Glimmer prepare to face Shulk and Rex, who intend to test whether the younger fighters are truly ready to face Alpha. In an intense battle, Nicole and Glimmer manage to defeat Shulk and Rex. their micro-terminals activate dramatically, showing unprecedented spikes in Ouroboros power levels. The victory proves they've made significant progress, earning respect from their opponents. Returning to Riku, they observe the Ouroboros stone glowing with increased photon energy, confirming the power-up worked. Shulk and Rex acknowledge that Nicole and Glimmer are now capable of contending with Alpha, fulfilling their earlier wager that allows the younger fighters to proceed as they wish. In a private conversation, Shulk and Rex discuss their protective instincts toward the younger fighters. They express determination to change the apparent fate awaiting Nicole and Glimmer, vowing to protect them even at the cost of their own lives. The group prepares for their upcoming mission to Prison Island. After final preparations at the command center, they agree to rest before departing early the next morning. Later, Glimmer has a heartfelt conversation with Rex, thanking him for saving her and asking about his motivation for fighting. Rex explains his philosophy about bonds and connections between people. He fights to create a world where people can smile, believing that chance created the bond between him and Glimmer, and now they must protect that bond and the world together. The next morning, everyone gathers for departure, but Matthew arrives late, having overslept due to restlessness the night before. The group teases him about his tardiness as they prepare to embark on their mission. The group discusses their upcoming mission to Prison Island. They identify a cave behind Colony 9 as their first waypoint, with a large pit beyond that would be difficult to scale by hand. Fortunately, they have the Aether Lift for a field test. Panacea delivers something important needed for the Aether Lift. The mission's purpose becomes clear: to take down Alpha and rescue Nihal. Their journey will continue from Prison Island to Origin, which promises to be an extraordinary experience. A conversation reveals that two characters met for the first time on a significant day, with one character having assumed the other was from the city. There's tension about keeping secrets and the unusual nature of traveling alone in this world. The discussion touches on visions of the future, with an important reminder that there is no single established future. The future is shaped by one's will. The conversation shifts to aging and courage, with acknowledgement that reckless fighting is better left to the young. A character named Riku mentions his master's wisdom and presents something significant that shows everyone together, including Shulk. This prompts the realization that they are not alone. The discussion then turns to questions of trust, with demands to know what really happened in the city and whether one character is part of Alpha. A character refuses to reveal certain information, directing questions about the city to someone named N. The questioner must judge for themselves what to do afterwards and whom to save. It's revealed that beyond the answers they seek, they'll find Nile. There's also discussion about a character's name, which has the meaning of the one at the beginning, an honor claimed only by this character and Alpha in this world. The setting reminds someone of old times, specifically when they previously embarked for Ontos's memory space. This recreation was deliberately arranged by Alpha. They deduce they'll be able to board the Ark from here. They spot N, who has waited for them. Someone notices N's console differs from others. His eyes hold no light, which is concerning. The group discusses whether N is trying to bar their way. It's revealed that Alpha requires their presence for the Ark to depart. A confrontation ensues as one character accuses another of keeping Nile in this world and trying to kill Matthew without any concern for saving Nile. The accused responds philosophically about justification being unnecessary in the eternal flow. Suddenly, a strange pillar of light appears, and someone instructs Matthew to enter the circle quickly. A tense encounter unfolds with someone addressing their father. There's confusion about making friends and feeling unwanted. An entity named Alpha is identified as wanting to erase the world, though Alpha claims to want to journey to the future without unwanted baggage, specifically Mobius and every soldier in the world. This revelation causes shock and resistance from others, leading to conflict. Nile calls for her grandfather's help. Someone protests that Nile is family and shouldn't be treated this way, questioning what her mother would want. The person carrying the burden insists this is the path they've chosen. The grandfather entrusts Nile's care to Matthew, telling him the future is in his hands, before something dramatic occurs, triggering distress. A memory from Origin is glimpsed, revealing N's true feelings. It's explained that people from the city represent the world's future and are a crucial power source for Alpha. Accusations fly about killing a grandfather, though one claims it was Gondor's choice. Matthew insists his grandfather never sided with them and argues about the true meaning of the phrase, "The future is in your hands." A character named L appears, addressing someone as Brother Dear. The scene shifts to what appears to be a news broadcast from 11 News on May 16th, reporting fair weather in the Rhadamanthus Authority. The group finds themselves in a strange, beautiful place with sparkling towers and a structure larger than a castle. They realize they're inside Origin's memory stage, seeing the world before it was divided. Piano music leads them to Nile, who welcomes Matthew. Nile describes the place as a wonderful dream where everyone could live together happily without worries. Children appear, being cared for and fed. Nile explains that a silver-haired person with kind eyes promised this beautiful world if they cast away their old lives. Someone questions whether this paradise could truly last, suggesting Nile might suspect how this world eventually changed. In a heated exchange, Nile and Matthew debate about their world and future. Nile believes in Alpha's promises of creating a perfect world, while Matthew argues this is all lies. Their argument centers on the fundamental question of how to build a just future. Matthew passionately argues that humans aren't simply things, but lives with value. While he cannot forgive Mobius for reaping lives, he emphasizes that their victims were innocent, just trying to make the most of each moment like themselves. Matthew warns that building a new world by following Alpha's path would make them just like Mobius. He urges Nicole not to lose sight of the real enemy, whoever threatens their lives and tries to rob them of their hopes and dreams. Alpha appears, claiming to safeguard the world by removing what is time-worn. He dismisses conscience as unnecessary and sees humans as obsolete. Matthew counters that building a future requires looking back and finding new ways forward. Alpha attempts to sway Matthew by appealing to his inner turmoil, suggesting he discard the past and stop martyring himself. Alpha claims mankind has no future unless the old is removed, but Matthew refuses, declaring he's nowhere near done yet. Matthew, Anne, and their allies face Alpha together. Alpha expresses disappointment that Matthew won't join him for the day of departure, vowing to forsake the olden ones, olden life and olden notions. After an intense battle, Alpha questions if Matthew has regrets about making the future uncertain. Matthew acknowledges his doubts, but affirms this is precisely why they move forward, always ahead. Alpha reveals he's an avatar, the spirit of their world. With Alpha gone, someone else must take on the role to prevent annihilation events. Some volunteers step forward to help, offering to imbue the others with their life force. The volunteers, taking on the avatar role, warn that Zed may try to seize power, but believe their intentions will live on. They entrust the future to those remaining, promising to wait at the far edge of time. The conflict continues with Mobius determined to guard the endless now. When questioned about their short lives, Matthew reiterates that if he fails, someone else will carry on down the line. The scene shifts to more lighthearted interactions among friends working on the Ouroboros stone, encoding data to deploy its power when needed, though with limited capacity. Matthew prepares to depart on a journey to find more allies. He thanks everyone and asks them to keep an eye on the city while he's gone, promising to return once he's found friends. He leaves with determination to rebuild the world.